going to show you how to make malas, or what we would call garlands, for Indian weddings. I had to make a few of these for a wedding recently, and I asked around for some advice and realized how many people did not know how to make them. And so I now know how to do it, and I'd like to show you guys how to do that. So this is everything that you need to create one. What you're going to need is 3 different sizes of beads. So we've got a small, a medium, and a large bead. And what these are is a 5mm bead, a 10mm bead, and a 15mm bead. So to create one necklace, you're going to need 84 of the 5mm beads, 17 of the 10mm beads, and 3 of the 15mm beads. You will need 2 skeins of thread. These are just those basic ones you make the bracelets with when you're a kid. You can buy these at the store. I got these at Walmart. They're 48 cents to buy one, or you can buy a whole set. I bought a bulk pack. It was 36 skeins for $4.50. You'll need a small needle and you'll need a large needle. You want to get the biggest needle that you can possibly find. This was the biggest one I could find on a short notice. I would like an even bigger one if I can get one. And the small needle, what's important about it is you want the hole to be big enough that you can get this thread in, but small enough that you can get it through the middle of your bead. If you try to use the large needle, this will not fit. So you really want to make sure you have both things taken into account. You're going to need a little bit of floral glue, and you're going to need 4 50-centimeter white roses, and you're going to want 11 50-centimeter red roses. For this, I'm going to use hosta leaves, which are a little bit smaller, but I have a ton of them in my garden, so I'm going to use these. For one necklace, you'll need 50 hosta leaves. When I did the wedding, I did aspidistra leaves, and I used 2 bunches, and I was a little bit short. So I would recommend, if you're going to use aspidistra leaves, you'll need at least 3 bunches, possibly 4 bunches. And those, you'll want to quarter them into 4 sections, take the spine out, and you'll fold them up, and they'll be the right size. Hosta leaves are just a lot smaller, so you need 50 of them. So remember, when you're making these necklaces, that every necklace is made in pairs and they're made the same size. So in order to do 2, you need double of everything. So you're going to need 168 of the 5mm beads, 34 of the 10mm beads, and you're going to need 6 of the 15mm beads. You would need 4 skeins, still your same needles and glue, but you would need 8 of the white roses and 22 of the red roses and 100 of the hosta leaves to recreate the exact necklaces that I'm making today. You can do the necklaces however you want. This is just how we're going to make these ones today. So I'm going to go ahead and get started and show you how to make these pieces. So the very first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to string a shorter thread. And this is the first one I've thread. And what you're going to do is take that same skein that we talked about, and you're going to run it through your needle, but you do not want a knot at the top. You just want to have this threaded through, no knot. And then you're going to double it over, so you've got a nice strong string that's not going to break, and you're going to tie a knot at the bottom. I tied a double knot here, and leave yourself a little bit of slack. That's important when you're doing these necklaces, that you have to have some slack. You can leave it a little bit longer. Just make sure that it's long enough that you feel comfortable tying. So the first thing you're going to do is string your beads. So I'm going to start with my small ones. These are my 5mm beads, and I am stringing, I believe it was 28 of them onto one string, and you're going to make 3 of these. One thing I do want to mention is, because this is for a wedding, you want it to be a high quality bead. These particular beads I'm using they're nice. They're not as high of a quality as I would like. And I'm going to show you the other beads that I used. These ones actually came off of some beaded wire. They're really nice. but they're a little bit of a more of a plasticky looking bead. Okay, I believe I got them all there. So you've got 28 beads strung on your string. And then I pre-did my other ones, so I'll show you those in just a second here. So these are the other ones that I did. If you can see, they're just a little bit of a nicer bead. And where these came from, I had about a 4-day notice to create these necklaces when I made them for the wedding last week. So what I ended up doing, you might recognize this right away, but I've got some thicker ones as well. And if that looks familiar to you, this is a bracelet from Fitz Designs that I used, and I separated the pieces and restrung them. So I used three bracelets to make 2 necklaces. So each bracelet comes with 3 sections, and I need 3 of these to make 1 necklace. And then I used 1.5 of these on the necklaces that I did. I'm just using 1 bracelet to make this. So I need 1 extra set of beads, so I pulled some beads off of some beaded wire that I used to make my 3 strings, and my 1 string here of my larger size. And this size here is the 10mm bead. Strings done, you want to cut off your needle, and you want to tie a knot on the end here, and I'm going to tie a double knot just to make sure nothing goes down. I'm going to tie that right up to the bead there, and I'm going to tie another one, and then we know nothing's going to slide. It's all going to stay right where we want it. Okay. So now I've got 3 sets here of beads, and then I have 1 set in a slightly larger size here, which actually, looking at these, I think these might be a little bit larger. So these are probably about maybe a 12mm, I would say. And there. Okay. So now you have those done, we're going to start assembling our necklace. So to create our necklace, you're going to do another string exactly the same way as you did before, but you're going to use the large needle. So I strung my very large needle with a long string, and the way that I determined the size of the string has to do with the size of the necklace that I'm going to make. So the way that I measured was I measured from the middle of the back of my neck down to the middle of my navel. And that distance comfortably, not pulled tight, but just pulled in a nice loose fashion, a way a necklace would hang, was 27 inches. So what I did was I measured out 27 inches of string, and then I added some extra slack on both ends because you're gonna need that when you're done. So now I went and tied 4 knots in the end here, and I left myself that extra slack that you need for tying. So we're gonna start with hosta leaves. Now hosta leaves do have that little bit of spine in the back, so I'm actually just gonna tear that off like that. And then I'm going to fold, fold, and now you can fold that way, but depending on how big of a leaf I'm using, sometimes I'll go that way. A lot of times I'll just fold here. And so we'll have that, and then we'll flip it over, flip it in, and flip it in. And so you've got this nice square here, and you're gonna poke your needle through and come up and pull your string through. So you're gonna end up with this. And you're gonna do 5 leaves like that. Now I have beautiful variegated leaves. You could leave one end open if you wanted. You wanna try to keep it roughly square. It doesn't have to be perfect. This is still kind of rectangular. And when you come down, you don't want to keep it exactly the same because it's going to look a little too blocky, so you want to rotate it just a little bit, and in the long run it's going to give you more of a cylindrical look to it. This is a pretty large leaf. We're gonna fold this in. The important thing is you wanna fold over and make sure that you are going through all those layers. If you get a little too close to the edge, you can rip your leaf and then it won't stay where you want it to stay. Remember, hosta leaves, just like if you're cutting aspidistra leaves, are all different sizes. That's okay. And so what I want to show you is if I leave this one side not folded and I go through, you get kind of a real pretty white edge on it like that. And that's okay if you're going to do that. Just make sure you either do it once in a while throughout the necklace so you have that pattern going through, or do it on every leaf, whatever you want to do. You just want to keep it consistent throughout your necklace. So now we have 5 hosta leaves on our necklace. So the next thing you're going to do is take a rose, and you have your rose here. And one thing you may have seen if you've ever seen these necklaces online is you'll see these really pretty flowers and they have this white tip on them. And the first time I saw that, I was sitting there going, I have no idea what that is. And it turns out it's just rose petals. What you're seeing is this right here. So when you pull your calyx out and you have that white edge, that's what you're seeing in those pictures. So what we're gonna do is split this rose apart, and you're gonna take your rose petal and you wanna keep this white tip facing up. So you're gonna fold in, you're gonna fold in over that, and you're going to run your rose petal through like that. So this is what you're going to end up with. The trick I found to this is hold it with these 2 fingers, and that leaves your thumb to help your other hand with folding. So we're going to take it, fold, fold, and go on. And when you go on, you're going to rotate your rose petal a little bit so that you're getting that white tip in different directions around your necklace. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you want to try to go in every direction so you're having that white showing. Once you get kind of a nice little stack going on there, you want to pull it down the thread. It's going to want to spin, that's okay. You want to straighten that out. And there you go. And you're just going to keep repeating until you have however large of a red section you want. So I found for my first red section, I'm going to use about 2 heads worth of rose petals. Once you make your first one and get your pattern in, you use that first one as your guide for all the rest of the ones that you make. Because remember, we're making 2 necklaces, so you're actually going to do this column that I'm making 4 times. And they should be as identical as possible. First section that I'm going to make. And now I'm going to go back to my hosta leaves. So I need 5 more hosta leaves here, and I'm going to rip the bottoms off. And fold, 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 and fold. Now when I did my aspidistra, I did not do the side folds because they were much narrower than a hosta is wide. So I don't want to get it, you want to basically keep everything to be about the same size as your rose petal column is going to wind up. So this set I am kind of leaving that edge on there. Again, either way is completely fine. You just want to have some consistency when you're making these. So I want to show you kind of the difference. Now see, this one I folded both sides in, this one I left the side out, so see how much wider that is? So that's what I'm talking about with being consistent. I just want to show you kind of the differences. Here I folded everything in, here I didn't. And see how much wider that is there? It's a little bit chunkier. But my rose petals are a little bit wider, so it's okay. As long as you generally have that column the same, then that's good. So now we're gonna switch over to white rose petals. Now I particularly like Eskimo roses, and they tend to be a little bit cheaper. So I did use Eskimo for this, but as you notice, compared to a red rose petal, it's a lot narrower. So just keep that in mind when you're folding your petals, that you wanna make sure you're getting through all the different layers, because these ones you can catch an edge really easily and just take. Okay, so I pre-made another row that I want to show you, and that's where I'm getting this from, my sizing from. So this was one that I already made. Here, my pearls out of the way. And then I am making my new one based on that one. So we're gonna keep the size the same. So if your leaves, like for example, my leaves are a little bit different because this row I only folded one side and not both, so they're not quite as thick. So I'm gonna have to move them out just a little bit to make sure that they're the same size as that section. That's why consistency is important. Okay, so we now have two matching sections of garland. And remember, again, as you're creating these in sets, so you need to make two more to create a set. So we're just gonna create this one for now so I can show you. So we now have the garlands made, and we have all of our beadwork done. We have one more thing to do before we assemble these. So I'm gonna take this out of frame. Then the last step that you want to do before assembly is you're going to need 3 full-size roses. So we used about 8 red roses to make those 2 garlands, and then you need 3 additional, which is where the 11 red roses you need to create one necklace comes from. So you want to find 3 that look really, really nice, like this. You're going to need your cutters, your needle nose pliers, and your scissors, as well as your largest needle and some of your thread. Hardest part of this you're gonna do. And you wanna give yourself a little bit of string. You don't need a ton. It's gonna be right around in that length. We're gonna cut that, and we're gonna tie a knot on the end. There we go. So now we've got our 1 pearl bead on there. And now this rose you're gonna cut as low as you can possibly cut. I know most of us are knife fans. I'm using this because I can get it closer without ripping the calyx. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut that off there as low as I can realistically without compromising the calyx. And then this is also where our glue is gonna come in. You don't need a lot of glue. Oh, mine is running. Okay. All right, so what you're gonna do is you're gonna thread this up through the bottom of the rose. So that's why we got this as low as we can. We're gonna go right through the bottom, up into the rose. And if you're lucky, you'll be able to see the needle. This is why we want a larger needle, as big as you can get, so that you can easily grab a hold of it. But this was the biggest one I could find, and this is a 50-centimeter rose. So I can see it in there, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you how to deal with it if you cannot see it in there. So you wanna push it up as high as you can possibly get it. Sometimes if it's really stiff, you can kind of push it on the table if you need to. But this is where our pliers come in handy. So we're gonna push that down as low as we can get. And again, I can see it, it's right there. But in case you cannot see it, another trick you can do is you can take the end of your needle nose plier and you can very carefully just push into the end and it will come out for sure. So now it's come out through here. I'm going to grab a hold of it and I'm going to pull it through. And now I have a bead on the bottom, and that kind of finishes that edge off. But we like to be thorough. So first I'm going to cut this down, get that, you know, realistically as short as I can without losing my knot. I'm going to pull this back just a little bit, and then I'm going to put just a tiny bit of glue. Don't gob this glue on. It's just for sealing this. It is not, you don't want it to show. So if you have clear glue, that's awesome. Use clear glue. I don't, so I'm going to use this, but my pearl covers the majority of that. Nobody's really going to notice it, but we want to keep it as clean as we can. So now we have this, and then you can cut your needle off here. Leave that slack on there. And now you want to do that 2 more times so that you have 3 of these total. So I went ahead and pre-did mine. So I now have 3 roses on strings, all with pearls on the bottom. Okay. Okay, so we are now ready for assembly. Get my workstation cleaned up here. So we have our 3 roses on strings. We have our 3 strings of smaller pearls and our 1 string of larger pearls. And then we have our 2 rows to make our necklace, okay? All right, so get my space all cleaned up here. Just realized I never cut my needle off of this end, so we're gonna cut that off. Okay, so this part's very easy, but remember which end is your top and which end is your bottom. So when I created this, this was the bottom and this end is the top here. So we're gonna go ahead and we can start on either end, it really doesn't matter. Let's go ahead and start on the bottom. And let's go ahead and do these first. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your 3 pearl strings. I didn't leave myself a whole lot of slack here. I would have liked a little bit more than this. So we're gonna take our 3 ends here. So we're gonna go ahead and get these tied in. Okay, I think we're good this time. Yes, all right. Okay, so there we go. You now have that nice and tight, and this is what you're gonna end up with. But again, you really do want a longer section than these down here. I made those a little too short. So we've got this tied up here, and we've got 3 ends hanging. So what you're gonna do with these 3 ends hanging is that's where these individual roses come from. So we're gonna take these, and you're going to tie the end of the pearls to the end of the rose. And you do want to try to get it into the rose. It may cut into your petals a little bit. Just be gentle with it. It's not the end of the world if it does. But you want to tie that nice and tight. And then you're going to cut that off as low as you can realistically cut it. Okay? And we're going to do that with all 3 of these. We want these to be nice and pretty. Okay, so what you end up with is this here. This part is going to hang down from the rest of your necklace. So you've got 3 beautiful roses that have pearl strings and your pearl on the bottom for that nice finish. Okay, so now our next step is we're going to tie the bottom of the necklace. Same concept. So you're just going to tie all the elements together, nice and snug. As tight as you can realistically get it in there. Okay, and don't cut this yet because now this is going to tie to this. And you're going to tie it nice and tight in there, right into your leaves. Okay, and you want to make sure everything is tight so you don't have any slack showing. You don't want the string showing. You want to try to hide as much of that as you can. Okay, Make sure you double or even triple knot if you want, just so you know nothing's coming out. Okay, and then we're gonna cut that nice and short. Okay, kind of fluff your leaves in a little bit. And now you have the end of your necklace here. Okay, and then our last step is we're going to do the top of this here. And that's where this guy comes in. This part is gonna sit around the back of the neck. And same thing here, we're gonna tie. Now, I have not come up with a good way to deal with the cut ends of these strings. If anyone has any suggestions, I'm open to that. But I have seen in pictures that their cut ends do tend to just show. So we just try to keep it as clean looking as we can. Okay. Again, nice and tight so you don't have any strings showing. Okay, and then we're gonna go in and again, just right as tight as you can get it without accidentally cutting your knot off or letting it come out. Okay, and we are done. Not sure if I can get this whole thing in one shot, but let me give it a try here. All right, so we have made our malas. So this is gonna hang down here on the neck, down, and have your hanging pearls on your hanging roses on the end. You can do these with white pearls, with gold pearls. You can do any combination you want. And I just want to show you, so this was that section where I didn't fold the other end, and look how this has popped out. So it doesn't look so pretty, right? So we're gonna trim that, but that's again with that whole consistency. But I wanted to just show you another way, but it didn't quite work in this necklace. So if you need to trim it, that's okay, trim it. You want consistency. All right, so I hope you love this video. I'll put a picture up of the completed one as well. And again, you would make this in a pair. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.